every time I hear my own bio written or read out to me, I always cringe. It's so difficult writing your own bio, no? I think there's a really good business idea in writing people's bios. You could actually have a branding or a PR firm, particularly for women. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's a tough call, actually, to do a TED Talk, to be an expert, but then also to lay yourself bare on a stage so that you are really connecting and making sure that you are speaking with something with impact. And so it's a real blessing to have all of you hear my story, a story that I've never given in public before. We're talking about bridges today, and one thing I've always thought was that bridges connect me to something. They connect me, they bring me somewhere. And so what has brought me through to where I am right now? Right now, arguably, I am a successful woman. However, I didn't always see myself that way, and I certainly know that other people did not see me that way. And so for me, resilience has been my most important trait, to acknowledge the fact that bad things happen, that they happen to people, they happen to women in particular form, they happen to children. And how do we recover when bad things happen? How do we not gloss them over? As a woman, I was taught not to show my anger, not to show my temper, and certainly as a woman in the workplace, I was not allowed to cry. And so how was I to acknowledge when my boundaries had been crossed? How are we taught that as young girls and young women? So not only will I speak on resilience being a bridge to the other side of whatever you are going through, but I want to get down to the practical steps that I know I've had to utilize just to make it through, just to get there, because sometimes all I want to do is survive. It's not about thrive. I just want to make it to the end of the day. So I had this vision for my life. I wanted to be a big, bad management consultant, or at least something in professional services. I'm not going to lie. It had to have something with a degree, because my mother, I wanted to be an actress at first, and she was like, oh, no. You're not, no, you need a real job. You need a real job. And so instead of being a lawyer, being a doctor, I explored them all. I said, you know what, management consultancy, I get to fly around the world, I get to solve people's problems. I had a vision for my life. And no matter who tried to derail me, and oh yes, there are many derailments, and I'm going to talk about those derailments in a second, I managed to get there. And then what happens? You get there and you're like, is this actually what I really want? But I remember when I was doing a job interview a long while back, and I had prepared to be a management consultant. I had networked my face off. I had gone to all of the big 4 consultancies, all of the networking events, my CV, gone to headhunters. I had done master's degrees. I had industry experience. And then I get in front of the interviewer, and he says to me, second question, wow, you're involved in diversity stuff a lot. Are you just an angry black woman? And I remember, and what did I do afterwards? I laughed and I said, oh, of course not. In my head, of course, I was thinking, this is what makes me angry. And of course, in my head, I was thinking, well, of course, we're not allowed to be angry, are we? Because you just put my handcuffs on me. I'm not even allowed to be angry. And I remember walking home from that interview. I got the job at the end of the interview, didn't even need the call, but I cried. I cried so long and so hard because I thought I had worked so hard. How many master's degrees did I have? How many organizations did I have to lead? How many TVs? How many papers did I have to write? And the second question you ask me is about being an angry black woman. You didn't ask me about my business experience. You didn't ask me about my multiple passports. You didn't ask me about my Canadian accent. You didn't even ask me about my brown skin. You asked me about if I was an angry black woman. I cried long and I cried hard, and it was almost like this David Banner scene with the music playing in the background. I was walking along the Thames, in the movie. I thought, and then I called my squad, my community, I called my girlfriend in New York, and she flew over the next day, and she got together these 4 other black women who were, doing things. We were all young in our careers then, and we got together, and they got me through because I had someone to cry with. I had a community. But there was one thing I knew I needed, despite all of the troubles. It was the vision, because I knew that no matter what any person said to me, I was going to be a management consultant. I visioned it. I put it on a board. I had pictures. I knew. And so there was no way he was going to deter me from my path. The thing is, I had a vision, but I also knew I had a history and I had legacy. So in developing resilience, I would also encourage you to look back at what your ancestors, what our ancestors have done together. We literally live in a country that has a saying. We've made up this saying, keep calm and carry on. Like, that's the legacy of living here in this country. We know how to carry on. If we look at our great institutions that we're most proud of, the NHS, TfL, the oldest in the world, and they're still here. If you think about what this country has gone through, we know how to survive. We know not only how to survive, we know how to thrive. If I look at my own ancestors, I came here in chains and now I'm on your stage. If I look at my ancestors on a greater level, I think, there was a whole genre of music, a multi-billion-pound industry of music was based on the fact that a school took away the instruments and the music program from a little school in New York. And that's how hip-hop was born, because of lack. That's the history and legacy that I know I have of my ancestors. I know that with women, it's no longer about us not having the ability or the perceived ability to work. It's not about us not voting anymore, because our ancestors fought for that. And so I know that there is a legacy of change and advocacy in me that I can keep on going. So that's what helps me fuel the vision and the resilience. But quite frankly, I'm not even gonna lie, in the middle of it, it's hard to look at the vision. Sometimes in the middle of it, you just gotta feel it. And so I encourage everyone in this room that when you receive a blow, don't shove it aside. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge the anger that you feel. Acknowledge that there's a boundary that's been crossed. I'm not saying that you have to go off on a mission and express it in an unhealthy way. But what I am saying is that anger, hurt, and pain are ways that your body and your spirit are telling you that your boundary has been crossed, and they are healthy. They are healthy. And that is how you develop resilience. I was abused for 10 years, and for 10 years when I was a child by an extended family member. And for 25 years thereafterwards, I said nothing about it. I lived with it, my own secret, my own shame. And it's only when I got together with my 3 other extended family member cousins and realized that they had gone through the same thing, I had my community around me who was able to say back to our parents, hey, you know what, this is what happened to us and we were scared to tell you before, but now when we're 40, we're gonna tell you. It's so important to have that community and that squad to uphold you, and that history and that legacy that you can look back on. Surround yourself with positive stories. Surround yourself with stories of people who are doing things, who are getting through things, because quite frankly, there are enough stories out there that are really, really negative. So forget those ones. You don't need them. You don't need them. Otherwise, another tool I know that I've practically used in terms of resilience and developing it is it's kind of boring, but hard work, grit. The success does not come easy. Success does not come in little short bursts. They don't come after short bursts of work either. If you look at some of the most amazing people in their field, so if you look at, for example, J.K. Rowling and how many manuscripts did she write and how many times did she get rejected before the one came through? If you look at Michael Jordan when he was cut from the high school basketball team, they must be crying right now. Oprah Winfrey, they told her that she wasn't good enough for TV. So I have to laugh because, quite frankly, we're at the time right now, if you're in your, like, say, mid to late 20s onwards, that's where you see hard work pay off. It's not about natural ability anymore. It's not like, Jennifer Lopez actually doesn't really sing that well naturally, and neither did Madonna. I love them, but they took their lessons just like everybody else, and they worked really, really hard for it. And so in terms of being able to survive a blow and survive a fall, to get through to the other side, to bridge that gap, you're going to have to just work hard for it. But know that everyone who's really good at it, they work hard for it. That's what makes it worth it. This summer, I had one of the most difficult summers ever. I thought I wasn't going to make it here to the other side. Between love and loss of family and friends, I had an awards program, a national awards program, and I honestly didn't think I was going to make it through. I was on my knees. And that's how I got Simone being one of them, one of the founders of TEDxWhitehallWomen. They brought me up. They picked me up off my knees. I had a community of people. My mother, she came over. She's here right now. She's in the audience. I could not go on without saying hi to my mother in the audience. She came over and she helped me, but I lost my home, my family, my friends, my money, and I was on my knees. And then I had a community of women who really upgirded me and kept me from falling and walked me to a place where I could walk myself. And that, for me, is the core of my resilience, the core of how I get through to the other side, because I can't do it by myself. And it is such a beautiful, satisfying place to admit weakness, to admit that I can't do it all. I am not the superwoman. It's a great place, and it built authentic relationships that are built on, quite frankly, showing your backside to one another, not showing that you're perfect. And so between hope and history and legacy and community and grit and hard work, then those are things that you can foster yourself to anticipate and to not just survive, but thrive when the next blow comes. Thank you.